So how are you living, Nate?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm feeling good, excited, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure, man. You're one of the people, like, I feel like this trip and some of the interviews I've done is about, the youth them. It's about, like, getting to know the youngsters in the scene a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're someone who I've seen from afar and also, up close a bit, who's doing some things in Cape Town. You run a sick gig called The Movable Feast, which, I did on Tuesday. I had a fucking great time, lovely room. And yeah, man, it's dope to have you here.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that show has been really great. I ran it with Uma Bentele. Yeah, we're just stoked to do it, and we just want to show people a standard of what a show should be in Cape Town. Saying that without being like
a dick.
No,
but there are levels. I mean, I have noticed that as well. I mean, there's some really well-run rooms here, and there's also some rooms that feel familiar and that they've got a certain Durban quality to them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about open mic, right? Is that the format is flawed in itself, is that you let anybody up and anybody can run one of them. I was in San Francisco last year and it made me feel, going to open mic gigs there made me feel really way better about South African comedy because I was like, oh, this is shit everywhere.
Oh, literally. Like one of the cats who's back in Durban now, Aiden, he lived in Canada for years and he said he had to open mics there where it would literally be the comedians.
Yeah, just comedians, one old guy. I mean, I played a gay bar in San Francisco, and they're all also straight bars in San Francisco. I had to tell somebody that recently.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what a surprise, a gay bar in San Fran. Okay,
but like also mic cuts through my throughout my set. I walk out of there. It's like 7 o'clock. The sun's still up. I'm like, that sucks. That doesn't feel good.
Oh well, yeah, that must hurt the soul.
Yeah, it really does. It's like those two people that were in the bar left before I even got on stage. It's just comedians. That's kind of what it is. And I think that if you think about it, it's not that hard to put together a show. There's some basic things, and that if you run it consistently, and if you have 2 points of call at most to run a show, it comes together quite easily.
Yeah, consolidating things helps.
Absolutely. Making sure whoever is running it is aligned and that kind of thing. And I think that's like a big thing that we've been trying to do as best as we can. I think we're kind of getting it waxed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite impressed because also you're pretty new on the scene. How long have you been doing comedy for?
I've been doing comedy for 3 years. April 2021.
So just post-COVID kind of
Just post-COVID, I broke up with my girlfriend and started
midlife
comedy.
crisis, so just a little too early.
Exactly, instead of buying a sports car, I started comedy.
I mean, both will lose you a lot of money, so...
Absolutely, yeah. And you both look like a dick either way.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, what inspired you
to start comedy?
Yeah, other than just the breakup, like had it been like
I think the first time I ever did a stand-up set, I was 12 years old. There was a kid's birthday party that I was invited to, and it was a talent show.
Talent show for a kid's birthday party. Okay.
Yeah, it was also a dress-up party. I dressed up like Ozzy Osbourne. I'm a huge Sabbath fan.
Oh, it's like even from that age.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was 12 years old, really into Sabbath, and went to the show and did comedy for my peers, and then I was asked to do it for grown-ups. And I think that feeling of making people laugh and entertaining people and seeing adults respond to my sense of humor really just never left me. And I always wanted to do that. And yeah, I've kind of always been doing it, performing in some kind of, in some shape or form.
You were like a theater kid kind of thing?
I did theater when I was growing up, pantomimes and musicals and all that kind of stuff. And I was in a band, I was a bassist, and I realized from an early age that it wasn't only the performing. I also
Any name I would know with the band or nah?
No, you definitely wouldn't. It was like my high school band, dude.
Okay.
We were super underground. We opened for like A-King like 3 times.
I mean, that's sick.
Yeah, I mean, we were like the only band in George to open for them. So,
but small town things, yeah.
Yeah, and like I think what I realized is that I really liked organizing the show. It wasn't just the performing. I love the performing and being the center of attention, but I liked being the reason that all these things were possible to kind of present a product to people if I felt that then or not. And I'm still kind of doing that now, which is putting together stuff and curating. And I love that a lot. And I like getting the chance for people to show off their talents. I think that's Dope. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we relate quite a lot there.
Absolutely. And you're a writer and a journalist, and I've done that a lot as well. And I think that's also a big thing, is putting people, giving a platform to people to do that. It's just a different kind of way that they get out there.
Yeah.
The written form and the live form. But they're
so
the same
funny,
sides of the same coin, I guess.
Because I assume you've also probably been called a hater as much as I have been.
Oh, dude. I don't think...
Like your whole career is about putting other things on.
Right, but you're still the biggest hater.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny like that, but it's like, well, you're just opinionated. You just have an opinion about things.
That's it. Like, I love things dearly.
Yes.
I just hate most things.
Yes, because most things suck if we
Exactly.
look at harder them, and I think you are looking at them harder than other people do.
Yeah, just with a little bit of a critical eye, like trying to place things in the context of everything else around it.
Absolutely. Like, just because something is the biggest thing in South Africa doesn't mean that it should be like lauded as the end all and be all. And I think that's kind of the problem. We've spoken about this before, of like South African journalism and like specifically music journalism.
Yeah, let's get into it actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually didn't wear my Desmond the Tutu shirt because I thought that would offend you, and you'd be like, interviews off. We're not doing it anymore.
I mean, they're nice guys and they put on a good show, you know?
Yeah, you look like both of them.
I know, I've been told this. Like, the number of people I apparently look like just disappoints me sometimes. It hurts, you know? I'm just like, can't I just be me? Can't I just be Bobby P?
Yeah. Alcoholic Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
fucking love that. Shout out Craig Robinson.
Yeah, and then the other one I use sometimes on stage is Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I sprinkle it throughout my sets. You know, I look like this, I look like that, I look like that. Just to like, get like, it's a fun way to put, like, let the audience know you can laugh at yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important part of comedy, is to be self-deprecating, because it kind of opens the door for you to be critical of other things. It's like, well, I'm not just looking at other things and being like, fuck this. I'm also kind of like, fuck me. Who am I?
I mean, that's also the thing I think like people don't necessarily realize is I'm just as critical of my own work as I am of anyone else's. Like, especially when it comes to like music writing and stuff like that. I cringe at some of the things I used to write.
Absolutely. You're a big fan of Mark Maron.
Yes.
I'm also a huge Mark Maron fan. I actually saw him at the Comedy Store last year.
Yeah, I hate you.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. But he's got this one line, I can't remember which special it's from, where he's walking in his house and just out loud to himself, he says, "You're ridiculous, but you're no dummy." And I think like having that thing of being like, you are ridiculous, but you also take yourself more seriously than that. And like, I think that's a big part about being self-deprecating, and how that allows you to kind of look at the world in a way like that, where you do appreciate things, I don't know if that was a coherent thought or not.
We'll see in the edit.
We'll see in the post.
Like, let's talk a bit about the music journalism side of things, because you got into it at like the worst time possible, basically. Yeah,
definitely the worst time. I can't remember, like, I'm trying to think now when I wrote my first piece, and I think it was like 2017, 2018, I got into music journalism because there was going to be a music festival in Stellenbosch where I studied, and I wanted to get free tickets to it. And I was like,
I mean, that's how every music journalist starts,
right,
I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And I basically came out and created a whole platform and stuff, and conceptualized it and got people on board. And then
what was the platform?
It was called Friendly Societies, which is like one of the first kinds of trade unions. Is a friendly society. I used to have
commie.
Yeah, I'm a dirty commie at heart, and the thing is that never took off the ground, and it never reached the point. And
because Facebook had killed organic reach by then.
Absolutely, I didn't even think we had like a Facebook page or an Instagram page. I don't know, like it hadn't even got to that point. And I think that experience was like, well, it's actually really easy to get in touch with people and ask for an interview. Like, that's the easiest part about it. The hard work comes with getting, like, as you're saying, like an audience and all those kind of things. And there's a lot of things working against that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the issues, obviously it's social media and stuff like that. It's the pivot to video and visual, like media, and, TikTok, Instagram, all of this.
Sure.
But I do also think like the lack of editorial direction with a lot of websites is what like made me just like tap out kind of thing, because I'm just like, you need to actually have a voice here and standards and go, this is good, this is bad, not this is here.
Yes.
And that's what so much of what I see online these days in South African journalism, not just in South African music journalism, but like around the world. It's more just about posting something so the band shares it.
Pretty much. And I think that one of the big reasons I got into what my idea for Friendly Societies was based off the lake.
Oh, the lake is sick.
The lake is really cool. Shout out Steak.
Yeah, I still need to get Steak on here.
Dude, you have to.
I love Steak.
He was the editor of the Session Mag.
Yes, that as well.
Really has great art direction, and there's so much like eye for detail there that I really appreciated. And I wrote some stuff for them when they launched their online store, which was a couple of years ago. Online platform. And yeah, that was kind of the standard that I had in my mind. And then I couldn't think that led to wanting to get a platform and like not only for the band to share, but I didn't really crack that. And I was like, well, I like doing this. I also like putting on shows. And that kind of was like, I had this experience of putting on shows as a teenager. I was like, well, let me combine the two things, put on shows. And I did that in Stellenbosch and
which there was, I guess, a bit of a need for and a market for.
Absolutely, and also a bit more alternative than what was happening at Bohemia at the time. And Bohemia Thursday, shout out Bohemia, and sponsored by Robertson's Winery, box wine for the win.
Hey, I love their box Chardonnay, bro.
Yeah,
$150 for 3 liters. Let's go.
Boy. I'm also a fan of the box wine, but so like kind of bringing that to Stellenbosch, and I booked people like Cloud Inc. and Albany Law.
Oh fuck yeah, I love Matt.
Yeah, and actually Matt was on the show a couple of years ago, and he gave me a shout out then. So shout out Matt Rightford, who's now playing for Kujenga,
who are sick,
who are insane. Best thing coming out of Cape Town in such a long time,
and maybe South Africa.
And yeah, we need to appreciate them because, as everyone knows, they're going to be out of here. In a minute.
Like if they're in South Africa next year, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed. I'll be like, what the fuck, guys? Yeah. So like organizing those shows, and then I kind of went into a management kind of direction.
Managed the Plastics for a little bit.
Managed the Plastics for a bit.
How did that come about?
That came about because big fan and knew the guys for a while. But
you're also quite a bit younger than them.
I'm like maybe 12 years younger than like the youngest member of the Plastics. And we just started talking before the pandemic hit, and they were really cool. They kind of gave me this opportunity. I learned a lot from them, even with like the pandemic striking. But yeah, it felt like a consolidating of all the things I had always learned about running shows and that kind of thing. And
because you knew it from all angles, basically.
Right, from being in it, from putting it on, from writing about it. And
so you know what the media is looking for, you know what audiences want, you know what the venues want.
Exactly.
And then now you're learning what the band wants.
Exactly. And then like I learned a lot from Pascal Regini about managing expectations, and that's the big role of a manager, is to manage expectations. Another friend of mine who gave me a lot of input during that time is Saul Nossel, who is Volume in Joburg. He's a Joburg DJ. He's also been in bands like Going Barefoot, I think is the name.
Or Go Barefoot.
Go Barefoot.
Yeah, I remember them.
He's now part of the Jägermeister Brass Cartel, and they've been doing really cool things, touring Europe and stuff. Shout out
all the way from OP to Europe, eh?
Yeah, absolutely, which is sick. And so I kind of like learned a lot in that time about like the industry and stuff, and I think that is very closely related to what you need to do in terms of comedy and setting kind of owners' expectations about what a comedy show is going to be, and trying to make connections in terms of media and all those kind of things and what an audience wants. And I think that it's all really been a long time coming, if I think about it, and it feels natural. But managing expectations and also just realizing that you can fail at something, and that you're probably still going to be buddies with the guys that you ran whatever you ran with, you know, and that it doesn't, just because something fails doesn't mean the relationship has to fail. Because
it doesn't mean it has to, but it's in my history,
it might.
Every now and again, things lead to never speaking to people ever again.
Right.
But that's always just like, you know, if someone doesn't pull their weight or steals money or those sorts of things.
Absolutely. But if things fail for other reasons, then we're all going to be friends in the long run. And I think that that's the big thing, is that people need to realize that it's not a race, to get to where you want to go, whether it's music or writing or comedy. It's going to take a long time, and you probably should foster good relationships with people across the board, because you don't know when you're going to need somebody, or they're going to need something from you. And yeah, I think that's a good way to have longevity.
Yeah, I definitely burned so many bridges when I was younger, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little better at not just calling everyone a cunt.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're speaking to the choir, not me, but I think that like my dad was kind of like that. He spoke his mind and burnt a lot of bridges and slammed a lot of doors. And
what did he do? Was he in music and stuff or no?
So my dad,
So I'm assuming he would have been the influence for Black Sabbath and stuff, but
yeah, no, totally. But he was a civil servant. He worked for land affairs. Prior to that, he was kind of in the anti-apartheid kind of movement, and
that explains a bit.
Yeah, like he kind of deserted the army and went overseas, and before then he was in the student movement at Wits in like the 70s, and I think that he would organize concerts there. They had the Free People's concert once a year, which is cool. I don't know that much about it. I just know that he was involved, and there was a lot of people coming and playing music for a free South Africa. And then he went overseas, and he was involved in like trade unions and stuff
so this clearly has influenced your politics as well to a degree.
Oh, absolutely. My parents actually met in Israel, and
controversial.
Yeah, controversial. And went to Denmark afterwards, where my mom's family's from. And I think that a lot of that kind of has very much influenced my politics, especially from a young age. My parents they always said to me, like, you can't go to Israel until Israel's free. And
oh, wow.
That's something I didn't understand at a young age, but I am really grateful for now that they put me on the right path in that way. And I think being Jewish and having that coming from your parents is really important, because I think a lot of people are blinded by Zionism. And
100%.
Just
like a lot of people within apartheid South Africa were like, white people were blinded by, the propaganda of the time.
Absolutely. And I think that the propaganda machine it's built into the family unit, and it's to say no to something is to cut off parts of your family. And that's not easy for people to do, and I think that's the part. And I'm kind of glad, because my dad did slam a lot of doors, but that was part of his personality, is that he never...
Didn't compromise.
He didn't compromise his ideals for anyone. And that's something that I would like to emulate in my life. And I think I do emulate in my life. And if you're a Zionist, don't ask for stage time at Movable Feast.
But how's that whole situation been for you as a Jewish person with really left-leaning, beliefs, and who has been publicly saying like, no, this is wrong? Have you been getting much like backlash and stuff?
Look, I think I have, like, since I was like maybe in my high school years when I was 14, and the whole kind of thing about, this is nothing new, right? Is what I'm trying to say. And I've spoken out about this before. And I think that a lot of the people who maybe would have lashed out at me already have done that like 10 years ago.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm with you there, dude. Because so many people like don't follow me anymore because they just don't fuck with my politics, and like that's fine. Like I was posting about abortion stuff when I was a teenager, and like I've always various different things, and always taken like also different stances to people on my side sometimes, but like. Yeah, like that's the thing. I know what you mean. Like, whereas, like, I'm not getting any backlash anymore. People are like, I'm done arguing with Bob.
Which is like good, but also bad, because it means like we're in an echo chamber.
I agree.
And I want to be engaging with people about this, but because of how the algorithm is shaped, is that we're on different parts of the internet now, and we're all feeding into our own kind of like hive mind thing. And I think that's bad on multiple points, because then we don't have creative dialogue and constructive dialogue around the things that we should be talking about. But I think in my life, I have more conversations with people that are close to me, and we actually kind of are able to talk about things, not like I'm going to shout at you on the internet kind of thing.
But that's the thing that I value the most, is doing it in person more than online. Like, yes, we can. That's also why like I don't share as much as like some other people do when it comes to the Palestine stuff, because I'm like, it's not effective.
Yeah.
You know, if you're like, people are going to literally unfollow you and stuff, like, and or mute you or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, if they see you posting stuff every day and like, so yeah, it becomes an echo chamber. But
Yeah.
when you can actually just talk to someone in person, it's also typically a lot more reasonable.
Yes, exactly. Because you can say whatever you want on the internet without any like fear of the outcome or getting like punched in the face, you know. But actually, funnily enough that you mentioned this, because this morning I posted on Instagram, don't forget Palestine, and this guy who runs a photography shop in Cape Town, I think that is broad enough, I'm not going to name him, but he replied, capital letters, who? And then I replied to him, I think it's past the World Health Organization's capabilities at this point, but not the worst suggestion. And then he said some dumb shit to me that I'm not going to repeat. But so, I mean, it's not like, but the thing is, I think that when I do speak to people, when I speak to Jews, the whole thing that gets brought up all the time is all the anti-Semitism, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to note that the anti-Semitism isn't being created now. It's just increasing now because, as we've seen by Israel's actions and
also bad faith actors.
And fucking bots online that are being sponsored by the Israeli propaganda machine to make it seem like that's the issue, but it's just pure obfuscation and not actually the issue. And the issue is genocide and the killing of innocent people and
settler colonialism
and white supremacy and all those
being an American,
and also just like imperialism essentially. So yeah, I think that it's the kind of thing that I have had conversations with people, but I think that after October 7th, I feel like I haven't had people just call me a self-hating Jew. Like that hasn't been really happening. And I haven't really felt from other people outside the Jewish community, I haven't really felt that much antagonism towards me. So I don't know what that says.
The tides are changing, or maybe people that are around you are a bit more open to the ideas.
Right. I do think that there's been a lot of anguish in terms of myself and in terms of my Jewish identity, and that my parents were in Israel, and complicity, and having American family, and being in America last year, and spending money, and that obviously taxpayer money all goes to funding the war machine, and like a lot of that anguish has been a lot more extreme because of what's happening now. But I think that in terms of interactions and shitty interactions, not that much. So yeah.
That's dope.
I don't know really what to do anymore about this and what to say anymore, because it just feels like nothing works and nothing helps.
Well, that's also been the depressing thing about all of it, is that, like, you know, it's revolution or nothing. Like essentially, yes. Especially with America at the moment, it's like you look at their choices and it's like those aren't choices.
No, absolutely not. It's like I don't know if you've been watching the debates, but holy fucking shit.
Like, life's too short, bro.
I mean, I've been watching the Jon Stewart Daily Show breakdown of it, and it's just really harrowing, you know. Those are the two options. But I think I interrupted you.
No, we're having a conversation.
Right. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, you're completely right. It's like, either way, it's like we need a full-scale revolution in America to change what's happening in the Middle East. But I don't know. I think it's also it's been really, I think, moralizing to see how many students have come out and what's happening in student activism in America on those college campuses, all the bullshit that people have been saying about it, all these people that, like, for my whole life in terms of comedy, I've always looked up to, you know.
Oh God, yes.
Like coming out and being like, oh, these Hamas apologists, and like, it's like, well, every single time there've been student protests in America, those student protesters, large scale, they were right, you know.
Worldwide, bro. Like, because the youth, like, I have the luxury, I guess, to be ideological.
Right.
In a lot of ways, like, as you get older, like, point. You have to compromise in life. Like, that is the reality. If you, like, don't want to live on the street, like, you know, you got to be a capitalist to a degree. And like, you know, I know for myself, I've had strong stances that, like, I've had to compromise on at times, you know, just to survive in this fucking world. And when you're younger, like, you do have that luxury. I'm putting in inverted commas there to a degree, because, like, yeah, you haven't got all the other things with life, but that's also why those are people you should be listening to, because they're not compromised.
Chained to the machine like you are, right? Yeah. Exactly. And that is always the criticism that kind of the older generation has of it. It's like, oh, you're so ideological. It's like, yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, you know, like, yeah. And I feel like the same way about myself, like the kind of views I had on things were way more hardline maybe 7 years ago compared to now, you know. But you still have to have your views. Yeah. You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And you also do like have to make tough decisions as life goes on to go like, yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns here, even though this is going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, I've like with my own career, with many different things, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, no one else would care, you know, if I'd made the other decision.
Yeah.
But like I would always know, because I know I've done things where I'm like, fuck, I did that thing and that sucks.
Yeah. Even if nobody takes notice of it, I'm always going to live with that memory of like the time that I compromised my ideals, and that fucking blows. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think there are levels to that.
Definitely. But I'm also thinking like, yeah, because of like fees must fall and stuff like that. Were you too young for that, or?
I think I was like a first year student when that was happening, and I went to a lot of demonstrations and stuff. But yeah, I was also in Stellenbosch, so we had, what did we have? Can't remember the name of the movement that we had. It wasn't like Roads Must Fall, wasn't Fees Must Fall. There was something else. Open Stellenbosch, that was the name of it.
Oh yes, because of the Afrikaans aspect.
And there was the whole language policy to it, which was kind of like the battleground.
That's what I mean, like, yeah, just that lectures were done in Afrikaans.
Yeah. So I was there, and I think I was one of the first students to have the T policy, which was this absolutely bullshit thing where 50% of the lecture would be in Afrikaans and 50% would be in English, but it was to the discretion of the lecturer how much would actually be between those two things. And you have somebody who's worked at the university for 50 years in teaching in Afrikaans, they're not going to immediately just switch to English, which is obviously they're not their strong language.
Yeah.
So I was involved with that, and I did go to see a lot of those things, and it really opened my eyes. I mean, I'm from George. I really didn't know much other than my parents' kind of political leanings. I never met anybody else who had, parents who were anywhere close to the anti-apartheid movement. So I think that was really eye-opening for me. And I also think that, it taught me a lot. And I think there were a lot of failings that many people who are more clued up about politics and student politics would be able to say better. But
I mean, everything gets co-opted in the end as well. This is
absolutely
the biggest issue like that I have with a lot of movements as well, like even something like Black Lives Matter, like you know how people became the figureheads for it, made lots of money off of it, like all these different things, and then the actual people who were doing the organizing got murdered by the fucking police in their homes, you know. Oh no, I'm sorry, they, you know, took their own lives.
Hung themselves, slipped on a bar of soap, whatever. But just because there are shortcomings to something doesn't mean that you should not take lessons from them, right? And I think that's like the big point of what we're talking about in terms of what's happening now in the US and around the world. And I think that anybody who is standing up for Palestine, my hat goes off to them, you know.
Amen.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in George? As you're saying, not many politically minded people around you, but
no, a lot of free use of the K word and just it's ignorant shit. I mean, I think that we were talking about anti-Semitism. Like now, anti-Semitism is so crazy. I mean, like I mean,
anti-Semitism was normal when I was growing up.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
Like calling someone who's stingy a Jew was just
using Jew as a verb,
literally
a lot. Growing up as well. I mean, this one time, this kid fucking shoved ham in my mouth at school, and I fucking gave him a puss clap. And I think that like those kind of things that really did form who I was and who I am now.
Because that also keeps you as an outsider.
Right. And I think that like a lot of what I notice about people who start comedy is like being the outsider, knowing what it's like to feel where you have to do more work than the other people around you to be accepted, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn how to diffuse situations that can be tense otherwise and make light of them and, make funny. And I think, growing up in George was interesting. I mean, it wasn't, I came from a middle-class background. I mean, I didn't have to struggle at all, but it wasn't like I refer to it as the cultural backwaters of this country, but that's not really saying much because I think most of this country is cultural backwater.
I mean, yeah, even in Cape Town and
even
Durban,
in Cape Town, like you can, it's ridiculous the kind of things that we put up with as South Africans. And even if you're progressive, I think most of the time you're not as progressive as you think you are. And
100%, it's like the idea of the Democrats being a left-wing party, and it's like, there's like a lot of people in South Africa who think that they're liberal and left-leaning and this and that, and then you actually hear them talk and you're like, no, you're a centrist.
Yeah, absolutely. At best.
Yeah.
At best, you're a centrist. We hope so. But it was one of those things. Lou Reed has a great album with John Cale. It's called Songs for Drexler, which is their nickname for Andy Warhol. And he's got a song called Small Town. And it goes, the line is, there's only one good use for a small town. There's only one good thing about a small town. You hate it and you know you have to leave. And I think that was pretty much my feeling about George, is that I was always going to move away from it. And I have friends there who haven't left. We're still friends and we're in still contact, but I think that, I think I'm glad I'm from a small town, and that it kind of also, that makes me a bit of an outsider here in terms of mainstream kind of like Cape Town and stuff, and growing up in a metropolitan area. I think that,
you don't get your hair done at Scar.
No, I don't. I don't. Shout out Abbas at Sleek in Boerkaap.
Okay, nice.
My dude. But so those kind of things that kind of, I think, all kind of form me into the person I am. And I'm grateful for it, because, otherwise I could suck, I could be the kind of person who doesn't have good views on shit,
I mean, I definitely relate there because of like, I didn't necessarily grow up in a small town, although, some people might think of Durban as that. But the area I grew up in was like a lower class neighborhood. And, politics wasn't, politics, wokeness, all these things is not like anyone's concern, because they're just trying to put food on the table kind of thing,
Absolutely.
and you also just like, you're just living life.
Yeah.
And you're living life that's passed down to you from your parents and from TV and society and everything like that. So people do become products of their environment.
Absolutely.
And I notice, like, I've still got one like old friend like from those days who I still hang out with and that. But we are so fucking different, completely different viewpoints in the world and stuff like that. But because we have this long history together, we can still chat and we can still take each other from where we come from,
Yeah.
Which I at least appreciate, and it allows me more empathy for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that people, where people come from is not always cushy and nice, right?
It's also, I'm not always right. Like,
absolutely. I think that's a really important thing. Growing up, I think that I realized that the opinions of my parents were not of the opinions of a lot of my friends, or not even my teachers and stuff. And I think that kind of showed me that there's more nuance in this world, and that to kind of influence and to get people on your side, you kind of have to, you can't bulldoze them, with your ideas, because you're just going to be shut down immediately. And that you kind of have to,
and especially when you're younger, you're just going to be made fun of.
Absolutely.
Like the number of times I was like, oh, he read it in a book.
Yeah.
Like that would be like a disguise.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, oh, how do you know that? I read it in a book. Oh, you read it in a book.
Yeah.
Look at this motherfucker.
I remember one time being in English class and I was like, ma'am, is this a double entendre? And my friend being like, you hear what Levinrad just said? He said fucking double entendre. Like, what a fucking idiot.
Look at the big brain on Brett.
Yeah, look at the big brain on Brett. Yeah. I mean, in that same English class, I had a teacher who cast me as Shylock from Merchant of Venice.
Fuck.
Like, all fucking, the whole term, just every time Nathan's your turn to read, I'm like, can somebody else be like the most anti-Semitic portrait of a Jew whole time? Yeah, no, she was a real bitch. She also made the only color guy be the only person of color role in that play, which is the Prince of Morocco, which is like, okay, we get what you're doing.
I mean, but also some people in modern context would be like, yeah, why would you let someone else play those roles?
Right.
But like, which I get, and also I...
Good casting choices. I get really annoyed when non-Jews get cast as Jews. I'm like, fuck you, Bradley Cooper. There's somebody else in Hollywood that can be Leonard Bernstein.
I mean, I get that, but
it's a great
also
film, though. I actually really enjoyed it.
Acting. But
it's called acting.
Like
prosthetic nose was a little bit much.
That's the things. Like, I'm like, do we really need to be doing these things? These like adjusting people's appearances and stuff, you know, to fit certain ideas of what, you know, Jewish or this or that looks like. Because, I mean, the whole identity thing itself is like, for me, like always just this weird complex thing. Because like, I kind of hate that like everyone's just self-identifying by terms created by other people.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I'm, you know, a gay Muslim, blah, 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 blah. Instead of just, I'm me, you know? And like, we all just get put into these little boxes, and we all now have to like, we make judgments of each other based on like these categories when
it's reductivist at best, you know, and like that's the problem with that, is that we're kind of letting all these people win, but also at the same time, it's important to celebrate who we are. So it's very complicated. It's nuanced, a lot of gray area there. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I identify as a loud Jew. That's how I identify, but with the caveat of free Palestine.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, I think it's also just for me, like, I hate like just like the ideas that people have about me, because it's like, oh, straight white male. I'm like straightish, whitish, male-ish, you know, like, because all those things are things like I've been given shit about, you know, on the other side of it, you know, I've been called a faggot. I've been called a K-lover, you know, like I've been called, what's the other one? Yeah, like just being more feminine or whatever in that, you know, and it's like, and because, I am all those things, you know, like.
Yeah. I love how you had the balls to say the F slur, but not the K word.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a bit of a...
I mean, I have sucked a dick before, so I think I'm allowed to.
Yeah, you earned that. Yeah.
But I've also, when I did it, but I'm like, there's no chance in hell I'm ever dropping the K-Bob, bro. Like, nah.
No, sir. It's a hard word. I don't even like to think it, you know. I don't think it, you know. I try not to. I catch myself slipping. I'm like, oh, gave myself the trolls.
I mean, I'm like such a, and when I use the term, like liberal white boy, and that like I even like when I'm listening to rap songs, I learn where the N-word is so I can, you know, rap along and miss it like every time. Like, you know, and like
nice.
I'll be at the club just like
when I'm in the shower, I'll drop an N-bomb, but
like out loud or in your mind?
No, out loud.
I get it from when I was younger, like, because the word does have like power, and like, you know, because you also like when you listen to rap as a white dude, sometimes there is a bit of a black fantasy going on.
Absolutely. No, dude. And I mean, we know people, we were people that like grew up with hip hop, and I think a part of that is to kind of being like you're glamorizing poverty and a lot of those things that go with the themes of hip hop. And I think that there's this person in my head who is a white dude who says the N-word and doesn't think there's anything wrong with it, because I've grown up with guys like that, and I'm just like, well, you can like hip hop and not want to appropriate every part of it. Appropriate in the loose sense of the word, because I also think that cultural appropriation is kind of like a ridiculous concept, because I feel that how cultures form and go about is through process of appropriation and stuff. I think that things can be cringy because you're like a white dude with dreadlocks, or you're wearing a piece of cultural like clothing or whatever. But I think that this idea that, oh, that's cultural appropriation is but pretty ahistorical if we're really honest about it.
I mean, I've had similar thoughts on that, but I also do understand within a capitalist structure and within like a white supremacist structure, how white people can take other cultures and profit from them.
Yeah, and co-opt a message.
And then the original gets lost to time, or just like even ostracized. Like yoga is a prime example of this.
I mean, like, I talk a lot about this in my act, and my mom's a yoga teacher, and how there's this kind of thing of like you're fetishizing.
That's exactly it. It's like Eastern like culture and
and spirituality and stuff. And it's been completely, look at Cape Town. I mean, we're in Sea Point. You go onto the street right now, the woman wearing athleisure wear and going to some 500 Rand a class yoga, and you're like, well, this is definitely one of those clear-cut times of, it's good for your body and whatever, but there was a time where somebody kind of made a decision about, I'm going to take this thing and profit off it.
Yeah. I mean, also the history of yoga is complicated anyway.
It's complicated enough, and I'm not well read enough about it, but I mean,
I mean, well, there's so much to it, but like personally, like even with that, like I do yoga. I don't make it a part of my identity. I do it alone at home. I meditate. I
real quiet about that. I like that.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, like I also get like that for some people it's a spiritual thing and this and that and like, you know, all these different spiritual practices, but also I'm not really a spiritual guy. Like I kind of hate the fucking concept and terminology, even though I get what it is and why we do it.
I predict a rebirth coming at one point. Where Bob gets spiritual.
I mean, it nearly happened during the pandemic when I was getting like listening to a little too much Alan Watts. But for me, there was more just simple philosophy. Like, because I mean, I've read like lots of complex shit. You know, I've read fucking Thus Spoke Zarathustra and fucking, you know, Beyond Good and Evil, and I've
Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, I've got like, you know, Lacan's fucking psychology books at home. Like. I've done the deep reading in that, but sometimes those little koans and stuff, you know, they're nice to remember. They're nice to like have these simple little things. They're like heuristics essentially that, you know, guide you through life and like just remind you like, hey man, you know, none of this is too serious. Like the funny thing is like I've always thought like Bill Hicks probably read Alan Watts probably because with this whole thing of it's just a ride. Like, and that to me is weird. Like as a youngster, like I got put onto Zen philosophy without even knowing where it came from. But that's also dope in some ways, you know, like because these ideas transcend. That's my thing. Like a lot of the like cool stuff when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to religion and that, it's an overarching thing. You know, it's just the power stuff that I hate. It's all the control, like how it's used in politics and like
absolutely, and having something that puts in groups and out groups and all that kind of thing. That's my problem with organized religion, right? And I think that for a large part of my life, where I kind of got my beliefs and stuff was a reaction to all that kind of Christianity and all those thoughts, and that was through like rock and roll and like that's kind of what I remember writing when I was a kid in high school in my Allo book, being like, God is just a concept by which we measure our pain, which is John Lennon line. And my teacher saw it and like scratched it out and was like, that is not what God is. And like I think that was kind of like how I thought about myself and my belief structure for a while, but also realized like that guy sucks as well.
Yeah, just being a contrarian for contrarian's sake is how you become Kanye.
Exactly. It's a dark path, and I think that there are good parts of religion, and heuristics is essentially that, and and you need a little bit of to take from both, but I think that it's easy to become like on either side of it, it's easy to become an asshole, you know?
Well, Ricky Gervais, you know, like
absolutely.
Richard Dawkins. These are all guys who like when I was younger, I mean, it's weird because like I was an atheist like at the age of like 12. And then when I was 16, I had like a nervous breakdown and like, you know, I was depressed as fuck. I tried to kill myself and like, well, I tried to die by suicide. No, I tried to kill myself.
Yeah, if somebody says unlive myself again, I will kill myself. I fucking hate
just
that.
To get past the things
I know.
online and
I know.
I also just hate all of that, but whatever. But yeah, like I was depressed, and then, you know, my friends invited me to church because like the group of friends I had at the time, like and then I went to church and I literally felt the power of God in me because I was hypnotized by this culty thing, basically.
And maybe you needed that at that moment.
I did continue, at that time. Like I really did. Like, you know, it helped. Like, and that's why I also don't begrudge other people sometimes, because I'm like, life, you know, like mental health and like staying. Like, this thing is absurd, man. Like, this whole fucking thing is absurd.
I mean, life's a bitch, you know? Like, whatever you need to get through the day, like, I get it, you know?
Yeah, so having the idea of an afterlife that you might get rewarded, especially when, you know, you're on the lower rungs of society, like, and then when you're on the higher rungs of society, you know, you like to think that you were ordained by God and you deserve all of this, and, you know, like, all of those kind of things. Like, I get how these things help in that, but, yeah, for me, as time went on, like, because of Christopher Hitchens and stuff like that, I did go back into atheism. And then that's also, I was an asshole. Like, it was funny. Like, you can ask Simi, like, he didn't
we were speaking about this the other night.
Yeah, he didn't really like me too much when I was younger because I was Islamophobic, man. Like, because of guys like Sam Harris and, you know, all these guys who, because of 9/11, made Islam the enemy. And, you know,
Clash of cultures.
Yeah. And that's also the problem is like when you're young, like, you know, because of ideology and stuff, sometimes you can get caught up in all these things. But as I've gotten older, it has just been a thing of letting go of a lot of things and like just being like, let people be. But if you're going to like tell me I have to be a certain way or anyone else has to be a certain way because of some made up shit, yeah, I'm going to push back.
Exactly. And I think I also went through that kind of atheism phase. I mean, I did philosophy of religion at university, and I remember one night just before I had to write an exam, I got really coked up with a friend of mine, and we went to a bar, and I was told this guy, the bartender, these 3 ways to refute the existence of God based on all these things I had just read and was regurgitating. I didn't notice that he had like faith and like praise God tattooed on his arms, and I was like, wow, I was a huge asshole then. Like, that's not a cool thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to take anything away from anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And also somebody who is literally in a service position and can't
they
tell me to fuck off.
Yeah.
But I think that definitely in my life, I have taken some of the things that I have like learned from Judaism, and that I've like, I mean, I'm not a practicing Jew by any means.
I mean, that makes you pretty Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I feel like Marin has a bunch of material about that.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's parts of like how I grew up and Judaism that really do inform my life. You know, like this idea of being a mensch, which is being a person to other people.
Yeah.
And that like I try to put in my life, you know, and I think part of that is also tied into what's happening in Gaza right now. It's like, to be a person to other people, it's not to your people, it's to all people, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's very much like, I think that the thread that's kind of run through my whole life up until right now, I'm getting away from it right now, is that I love people and I love being around people and I love people's stories and I love giving people a platform to share their stories or their art or whatever form it takes and to highlight things like that. And I think that is partly comes from how my parents raised me with a kind of religious aspect. Like my dad was an atheist, but he took me to synagogue like until I was 13, until I got my bar mitzvah, and then I still haven't gone back to a synagogue since.
How was your bar mitzvah?
I would love to say lit, but it was not that lit.
Was it in George?
It was in George, and it was like a lot of my friends' first bar mitzvahs, and
yeah, I was gonna say I can't imagine like you went to too many other bar mitzvahs.
No, I maybe went to like 1 or 2 other bar mitzvahs in my childhood, but yeah, I think that I'm glad that I went through that and whatever, and who I am. But that there are things that I've taken the good from it and also just thought for myself about what it means to be a person and let that guide me rather than some overarching thing, which is, I think, the bad side of being Jewish in the world today, living after the Holocaust, is that people do have this idea of themselves. It's very much a very kind of isolated, kind of isolationist view of the world, and
which also allows you to be manipulated.
It allows you to be manipulated and to be told a lot of stuff that's not true.
Yeah,
about
to be used as a tool for other people.
Absolutely, and use the worst thing that could have possibly happened to the Jewish people as a way of exercising the same kind of persecution. You know,
literally. I mean, although that's happened many times throughout history.
Absolutely, and there's this key tenet of Judaism, which is called Tikkun Olam, which is fixing the world, which is that we're here to fix the cracks in everything and to allow the world to be a better place. And I think that is a real thing that's being ignored right now, or being manipulated to fit a kind of agenda.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that kind of I think has happened with Christianity, because, you know, Jesus was pretty simple dude. Like when it came to, I mean,
real chill.
I mean, we don't know about that, but like just his whole, like when people asked him, you know, what are the most important tenets in the Old Testament? And he was, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind.
Do unto that and how you want to be.
Yeah, love thy neighbor.
The people, love thy neighbor, yeah.
And for me, like the first one, not so important.
Yeah.
But that second one, if Christians just live like that, it would be amazing. But instead, because like of identity shit, because of in-group and out-group shit, because of also people just wanting to outsource their uncomfortableness with the other sometimes, like with gay people, with, you know, like even like with the patriarchal side of everything and they then take these tenets and they forget the core thing, like with you saying, like, you know, change the world, essentially fix the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, love thy neighbor, fix the
Yeah.
world, you know, we are all one. Like all these things are the prime concepts of these things, and then people just bastardize them.
And they bastardize them, and we end up with fascism, you know?
Literally.
And that's what we're experiencing now, and it's fucking awful to watch, because I think that it feels like it can't be slowed down. But I also think that's like a deterministic way to look at it. It's like, no, that's just stopping you from doing something right now. To actually going out and being like, fuck, let me donate to a family in Gaza. Let me help people get out of there. Let me share as much information as possible. Let me have conversations with people. Let me do all those things.
Change the world around you.
Change the world around you in the limited way that you can, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm feeling that a lot at the moment, because like on a grand scale, hey, we're fucked. That's how I think. Like genuinely, there's no hope. There's no fucking, the world's gonna boil, or it's gonna fucking, we're gonna die by nuclear explosion, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I can fucking make a homeless guy a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I can, you know, do the small things in my way. I can talk to people. I can, there's like this sick thing I was just watching for the DFM. There was this awesome documentary called The Friendship Bench, which is about this psychologist in Zimbabwe. And he's one of 12.
In the whole country?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he set up this program where he basically got gogos to become counselors. Like he trained up these like grannies and stuff, which obviously gives them purpose. Yeah. And then also like,
and they probably already have the soft skills that they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they started at the clinics and that they would set up a bench and people could come and talk to them and, you know, cool. like get stuff off their chest. And they would also have a different approach to the psychology, because, you know, like if you go to a shrink here, like you'll go like for 10 sessions and then they'll start like, you know, trying to work on solutions and this and that. Whereas with them, they're like, these people walk 7 hours to, you know, come here, like kind of thing. And like they need to go home with a solution of sorts. Right. And so they enable people to find within themselves, like who around you can help. What are, you know, things like this? Is there anyone else you can talk to? Is there, and then they'd be like, you know, well, when will you do this? And they'll be like, oh, tomorrow. Okay, cool. Next week we'll chat about it. Yeah. And like they've now got, I think, like 1,000 gogos and grandfathers and kulus. Well, that's not, those are Zulu words, not Sean. But anyway, who have serviced like 100,000 people with an 80% success rate for depression and anxiety.
Wow, that is incredible. I really want to watch that documentary.
Yeah, so that like really just like inspired me and like reminded me that like it doesn't matter what the long-term thing is. Like, you know, like, yeah, maybe we're all fucked. Maybe maybe that's it.Maybe the long-term is everything is going to come crumbling down. But whilst I'm here right now, like I can make it a bit better.
Absolutely. And I think that's like a big thing about being South African, and like, is that if we have to realize where we came from, and that it started with people doing small things on a micro scale to achieve a long-term goal, right? And I think that just on the topic of Palestine, Gaza, that the things that South African Jews for a Free Palestine are doing are incredible, and that they're continuing to fight a good fight, and that I have nothing but respect for them. And that
has been the beautiful thing, seeing worldwide, like the Jewish community, and even like the Hasidic Jews.
Yeah, Hasidic Jews are very against it, because what they say is that Israel is an abomination for religious reasons, because Israel is a concept within Judaism that is only created when the Messiah, the Messiah, comes back. Okay. So any kind of thing that claims to be that is kind of like a false state, because Israel isn't meant to be, the promised land is an idea. Yeah, it's not an actual thing, right? But so that's kind of the Hasidic side of it, which I think is really cool. But also, I don't know, I don't want to gas up, but one wrong choice of words there, Nathan.
Wow, I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. I don't want to like hype up Hasidic Jews, because I think that
there's problematic.
Any types of extreme religious groups, there's going to be like horrible things. But shout out those ones who are talking about Israel and speaking out against things like that.
And it's interesting to see that, like, you know, it's the ones who aren't like necessarily co-opted like within media, and that, like, you know, like your Sarah Silvermans, your Jerry Seinfelds, your Amy Schumers and all of that, who I think it's like, yeah, because they've been co-opted, like they've been courted by Israel, you know, and like for them, it's also like, you know, their bottom line and like that is also going to be affected if they do speak out against it.
Absolutely.
But also, I don't think any of them feel like Israel's doing anything wrong. So
yeah. And I think that it's important to not only talk about the people that are not speaking up, but to just like to say like guys like Jon Stewart and Eric Andre and American Jews who actually are like, this is like
took Eric a little while, but sure.
It did take Eric a little while, to be honest, but he came around, and I think,
and that's also the thing. We shouldn't like be like, I can be a little bit of a dick about it with that, but like like anyone who wants to come on board, come on board. Like,
you can't gatekeep this kind of thing. You
definitely
know?
not.
Like that's considered productive.
I think there is one of the things that like I do struggle with though, with like, because it's also like because of Budria and shit like that, and like, you know, just the fact like of media and identity and like how people, I don't know what I'm trying to necessarily say here, but yeah, that activism can become someone's identity, and that for me that becomes disingenuous, and also I just become suspect of that sort of thing.
Right.
So I've also got complicated like ideas about with all of it. It's like, yeah, you're on our side, but you're doing it like to get likes, and like it's like you're centering yourself almost. And
you're making it part of your personal brand, and yeah, that is very cringeworthy. But at the same time, you're also contributing to the thing that we all want being spoken about more. So
yes.
It's kind of like you kind of have to let room for that, unfortunately, but also, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's a rock around, that's right on time. It's tricky.
It's tricky.
Cool. I know you've got to head out, and we are nearly at the hour mark, or we are at the hour mark. Cool. Nice.
Cool.
Which means I'm going to ask you a question. I think you know what's coming. You might have thought about it before this. What is a big mistake you ever learned an important lesson from? I
actually have not prepared for this question at all. Important mistake that I've learned a lesson from. I think the thing that I've always struggled with is that trying to please everyone and trying to be there for everyone. Trying to please everyone and thinking that you can make everybody happy, and realizing that that is not an achievable goal. I don't know if that's a concrete example. Do you want a concrete example of something I've done?
I mean, if like most people get esoteric with it anyway, because it's hard, like when you're on the spot to go, what's a big regret in my life? You know?
Yeah, fuck. I shouldn't have done blackface. I'm joking.
Easy, Sarah Silverman, easy.
I mean, I think that just to bring it back what we were talking in the beginning, I did interviews and I didn't write things down, and I let things fall by the wayside, and I promised people that I would put things out, and I didn't do that. And I think that I learned that that happens, and that you can always pick things up again and right the wrongs, and sometimes you can't, and that's okay as well. So I think that it's okay to let people down sometimes, but that's just part of life, and whatever it is, but that it's best to manage people's expectations at the onset and be like, also, I always commit to things that I think will work, and or I commit too much of myself to something and I actually really can't pull through 100%. So I think that that's something I've learned to do less of, which is to realize how much I am capable of doing, and not to promise the world and to get too high of an expectation from other people for me.
Cool.
So yeah, that's that.
That's a good answer, man. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Bob. This has been great.